There we go. Sorry. Uh, Verse 26. Also, Jeroboam the son of Nevat and Ephrati from Tserada, whose mother's name was Zeruiah, one of Shlomo's servants, rebelled against the king. Here is the reason he rebelled against the king. Shlomo was building the Milo and closing the breach in the wall of the city of David his father. Now, this Jeroboam was a strong, energetic man, and Shlomo, seeing how serious the young man was, made him supervisor over all the work being done by the tribe of Joseph. Once during this period, when Jeroboam had gone out of Jerusalem, the prophet of Ashiah from Shiloh spotted him traveling. Ashiah was wearing a new cloak, and the two of them were alone in open country. Ashiah took hold of his new cloak that he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 pieces for yourself, for here is what Adonai, the God of Israel, says, I am going to tear the kingdom out of Shlomo's hand, and I will give 10 tribes to you, but he will keep one tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city I have chosen from all the tribes of Israel. I will do this because they have abandoned me and worshipped Ashtaroth, the goddess of Sidoni, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Milcom, the god of the people of Ammon. They haven't lived according to my ways so that they could do what was right in my view and obey my regulations and rulings, as did David his father. Nevertheless, I will not take the entire kingdom away from him, but I will make him prince as long as he lives, for the sake of David my servant, whom I chose, because he obeyed my mitzvot and regulations. However, I will take the kingdom away from his son and give 10 tribes of it to you. To his son I will give 1 tribe, so that David my servant will always have a light burning before me in Jerusalem, the city I chose for myself as the place to put my name." So the reason I bring this up, as I study the Arabs, I see a lot of commonalities that, in the events that happen both in Israel and with the Arabs. So up until this point, we've been talking about the caliph, the caliphate, which, what does caliph mean? Huh? Successor, right? So we've been looking at the Rashidun Caliphate, which is the rightly guided caliphs, and their office was based where? Out of what city? Medina. Okay. So their office was based out of Medina. So Medina, if you were to draw a comparison between the two nations, Mecca would be the Jerusalem for the Arabs, even though Medina was the office or their, where they set up their focal point for their caliph government. Mecca was their Jerusalem. That's where their temple was. That's where they would go to worship. And Medina was basically I guess, second in line in terms of importance. So, if you were to compare that with Israel, it would be, I don't know, Bethlehem maybe, or Gethsemane. So up until this next caliphate that we're going to look at, the office was based out of Medina. The people were unified up until we saw, if you remember Uthman, we started seeing some issues arise because his pride overcame himself. So he became corrupt, set up his family members and clansmen in off high positions, and sought to assassinate some of his officials in Egypt. Then we had, when he was assassinated by his own people, Caliph Ali was the last one we looked at, right? So he his focus was to eliminate the corruption and bring back the Arabs to in line with Muhammad's teachings. So everything's based out of Medina, with Mecca as the center of worship. So enter the next caliph. Forgot the clicker. So the next caliphate was Muawiyah. So unlike the previous caliphs, who were descendants or related to Muhammad of higher, so we looked at we've been looking at the Quraysh tribe, which is the tribe that Muhammad came from, and within that tribe they have clans, and there's higher. Some clans are higher on the pecking order than other clans. And so Muawiyah came from the Umayyad clan, which is one of the lower, mid to lower levels of clans in terms of hierarchy. The Umayyad clan were one of the last clans to accept Muhammad's teachings and practices. So they opposed Muhammad up until up until his death. And so Muawiyah also opposed Muhammad, but eventually became convinced, or was convinced that Muhammad was, in essence, a prophet. So Muhammad assigned him as a scribe. So as you remember, Muhammad could not read or write. And so he was assigned as a scribe and was appointed a deputy commander in the conquest of Syria. So Muawiyah spent most of his professional life up in Syria, dealing with the Byzantine Empire. So he was successful. He became a high-ranking general. And then when Uthman was assassinated, Muawiyah was a supporter of Uthman, even given his corruption, because Uthman is really the one that elevated his office as governor in the region of Syria. And so when Uthman was assassinated and Ali took office as caliphate, am I not loud enough? Is that his complaint? Okay. So when Ali took office, Muawiyah was convinced that Ali was behind the assassination of Uthman. So he opposed Ali from his position in Syria. So he opposed his election and thought he was behind the assassination of Uthman. Most of Muawiyah's supporters were from the Syrian Arab tribes, so essentially what we would call today Palestinians, and also Christian Tanukids, which were adjacent to the Lachemids. If you remember, the Lachemids were one of the more northern tribes in early Arab history, and they were basically absorbed by the Byzantine Empire, so they became Christians. Same with the Tanukids. And so with their support, Uthman grew his governorship within Syria. Prior to his ascension to caliph, Muawiyah he was very wealthy. He spent an exorbitant amount of money building a residence in Damascus. So when Ali was assassinated, his son was elected. So remember, up until, as we get there, all the caliphs were elected by some of the leading, elders within the Arab tribes. So Ali's son, Hassan, was elected as caliph, but Muawiyah bribed Hassan's vanguard commander to leave his post. And so through fear of assassination and through financial settlement with the Hassan, Muawiyah abdicated him and took his position as caliph. So as you can imagine, this didn't go over very well with some of the more devout Arabs. So if you're a Sunni Muslim, you do not recognize Muawiyah as a legitimate caliph in history. So upon Ali's death, Muawiyah received oaths of allegiance in formal ceremonies conducted in Jerusalem. Some Muslims claim that Muawiyah developed and built the first mosque at the Temple Mount, where Jerusalem pledged his allegiance to Muawiyah.
Was Ali assassinated?
Yes. Yeah, so he...
By Muawiyah?
No, it was by a small clan that were, as in Ali's motivation to eliminate the corruption, he established a peace treaty with Muawiyah because they were, at one point later in Ali's caliphate, he ended up going to battle with Muawiyah, and it was basically a stalemate. And so to prevent the drawn-out battle, he established a peace treaty with Muawiyah. And so there was a sect within Mecca or Medina that opposed this treaty, and so they assassinated him. So during Muawiyah's time, the Jerusalem starts gaining some significance of importance within the Arab nation. So, according to some, he was the first one. He built the first mosque on the Temple Mount. That has yet to be solidified, as they obviously can't excavate where the structures currently reside. According to the Maronite Chronicles, which is basically a written chronicle by the Syrians, which was written in 664, immediately after Muawiyah's accession in Jerusalem, he went and prayed in Golgotha and the tomb of the Virgin Mary in Gethsemane. So both adjacent to the Temple Mount. All right, where am I? So as he established his court, so he already had his residence in court or in Damascus. So when he took office, he basically moved the office of caliph from Medina to Damascus. He repurposed the Roman temple of Jupiter, which was, actually I think I got a picture here. Yeah, so he repurposed the Roman temple of Jupiter, which at the time was a church dedicated to John the Baptist. So the number of people believe that's where John the Baptist was buried. So he repurposed it and set up a section of it as a prayer room for their mosque. And eventually, the Caliph Al-Walid would build one of the greatest mosques in history, which is the Umayyad Mosque. That's what's shown here. So they tore down the temple of Jupiter and built this mosque, the Umayyad Mosque, in 705. And when it was built, the Muslims and Christians shared the structure for roughly 70 years. So during the Umayyad dynasty, they were relatively accepted, or they were relatively how would I say that? They allowed Christians to practice. They were not hostile towards Christians. He also housed most of his Muslim troops in Damascus, so he set up his primary garrisons in Damascus. What was the other town called? Damascus, Tiberias, which is here, and then Jerusalem. So those were his three primary garrisons. And since another reason, especially during Muawiyah's time, for his acceptance of or allowance of Christians to continue their practices, most of his military was made up of Christians, Arab Christians. So during Muawiyah's time, one of his primary missions was to push back the Byzantine Empire. So, remember, he spent most of his time as a governor in Syria, which is up around here. And so he was dealing with the Byzantine Empire continuously. So when he took office, his primary mission was to push them back. So in the late 60s, he initiated a heavy naval front where he took a lot of their harbors. So you can see here, these are battles that he led, where red is losing battles against the Byzantine Empire and black is successful. So he took Crete, Rhodes, Beirut, Cyprus, Tripoli. So he, unlike previous caliphs who did not want to touch naval fronts, they thought it would span their army too thin. Because of his time in Syria, he was well versed in naval affairs. So most of his effort was conducted over the Mediterranean. He even went up as far as Constantinople and got his butt kicked at first. So then in 669, Muawiyah's navy pushed as far as Sicily, and he set up a wide-scale fortification in Alexandria. Muawiyah was also successful in expanding the Muslim territory over most of northern Africa. So this area here shows the territory of the Arabs during Muawiyah's reign, which is pretty amazing, given that the Caliph was established in, what was it, 680? Let me double check my memory here. Sorry, 632.
That's when Muhammad died, right? 630?
Yep. So given in 632 up to Muawiyah's reign, which he reigned between 661 and 680. So 632 to he started doing his naval offenses in around 670, late 660s. That's roughly 30 years. So to be able to expand this, when the first caliph, Abu Bakr, took office, this is the territory he established. So to go from that region to one of the biggest empire in the world in 30 years is an amazing feat. So Muawiyah took Spain, the majority of North Africa, all these regions here that are kind of bordered like that is Arab influence or Muslim influence, I should say.
What does that mean?
So that means they are starting to convert people. The Quran is spread. They're sharing Prophet Muhammad's teachings. my next one? So Muawiyah's primary challenge was overseeing a Syrian-based government. So, we read First Kings, and the purpose was just to bring up, the divide between the northern and southern tribes of Jerusalem or of Israel, or the divide between Ephraim and Manasseh. And when Muawiyah moved the central power location from Medina to Damascus, the Arabs within the peninsula saw it as a front. A lot of them saw it as a front against Islam. So his primary challenge in doing that was overseeing, it was basically a Syrian-based government. So a lot of the higher officials, a lot of his helpmates were of Arab Syrian tribes. So he was trying to reunite the politically and socially fractured caliphate, given, you had the corruption of Uthman, you had the assassination of Ali, the assassination of Uthman. So he was struggling to bring or unify all of the Arabs. So he did this by, he was the first caliph to establish offices within the government. So he appointed governors and advisors. The advisors would be tribal chieftains. So they would have, that way we would have influence over tribes through through someone they respected. And so he gave the advisors and the governors full civil and military authority throughout the Muslim conquered territory. And he also, because of his wealth, he required minimal tax revenues from these territories. So he had little to do with the ruling tribes back in Arabia, which were the Baham tribes or clans of the Quraysh tribe. So they were kind of the royal clans of the Quraysh tribe. He diminished the influence of both Meccan and Medina and the Quraysh tribe that controlled those cities. He even sought to diminish Muhammad's clan, which was the Banu Hashim clan, by characterizing them as suspicious and hostile towards the office of the caliphate, which they did oppose Muawiyah because they didn't believe he took a legitimate office. And then Muawiyah did something also that was unprecedented within the caliphate. He assigned his son as the next caliph. So no election process. It was just through blood. So that's another reason why the Sunni do not acknowledge Muawiyah as a legitimate caliphate. All right, so I put up here basically the line of caliphs of the Umayyad Caliphate. Just to give you an idea, I didn't want to go through every one of them exhaustively, especially since some of these only were in office for a year or two. So you have Muawiyah, his son, and then his son. So kept it in the family for three cycles of leadership. So 661 to 683. Then they don't know how his two sons died, or sorry, his son and grandson died. There's speculation they were assassinated, but there's no record of how they died. Here's Uthman prior to Muawiyah. So there was Uthman, Ali, and then Muawiyah. And then Marwan takes office after Muawiyah's line is removed from the caliphate. And then from him stems the rest of the Umayyad Caliphate from Marwan. So you have Abd al-Malik, which we'll talk about some of his accomplishments. Abd al-Aziz, and then so from Abd al-Malik, 685 to 705, you have al-Walid, and then Sulaiman, and then you've got Umar II, and then you've got Yazid II, and then Hisham, and then al-Walid II, and then you've got Yazid Ibrahim and Marwan II.
Is this also a family tree?
Yes.
So it's a succession, but also like these are cousins.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, they're sons. Yeah. Well, yeah. So if it's direct, so this would be a son. He would be the son of Al-Hakam. Muhammad was the son. Brothers, or here brothers. And then Hisham set up the Umayyad, in a branch of the Umayyad Caliphate in Spain. Okay. So remember this guy, Abd al-Malik, 685 to 705, so 20 years. Whoops. So he initiated and oversaw the construction of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque in 691. So Jeff's probably seen some of these personally. So this is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is the Tankazia School, this building structure here. So that's where they taught children in the ways of Muhammad and of Islam. I think currently it's a police station. Yeah. This is Islamic Museum. These structures here are the Umayyad palaces back during the Umayyad dynasty. Did you get to see those, Jeff? No. Yeah.
They do allow for public tours, but only on certain days.
Gotcha.
They're very restricted.
Did you even get into this is David's Gate, right? No, David's Well. I forget what they call it. Yeah. Then you have the Al Marwani Mosque here, Gate of Mercy or the Golden Gate. And then obviously the Dome of Rock, Dome of Ascension. Yeah. So a lot of history there with Islam. All right. 10 minutes?
You got script?
I got scripture. I'm trying my hardest to get it in there. Actually, this is good. Galatians 4. Galatians 4:21 through 28. Tell me, you who want to be in subjection to the system that results from perverting the Torah into legalism, don't you hear that what the Torah itself says? It says that Abraham had two sons, one by the slave woman and one by the free woman. The one by the slave woman was born according to the limited capabilities of human beings, but the one by the free woman was born through the miracle working power of God fulfilling his promise. Now, to make an application on these things, the two women are two covenants. One is from Mount Sinai and bears children for slavery. This is Hagar. Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. She corresponds to the present Jerusalem, for she serves as a slave along with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free, and she is our mother, the Tanakh says. Rejoice, you barren woman who does not bear children. Break forth and shout, you who are not in labor, for the deserted wife will have more children than the one whose husband is with her. You brothers, like Yitzchak, are children referred to in a promise of God. But just as the one born according to the limited human capability persecuted the one born through the Spirit's supernatural power, so it is now. That's as far as I'll go. So part of the reason why I bring in Scripture is, kind of show just how much history and involvement the Arabs have in Scripture. So it was during the Umayyad age, and I know we talked about this early on, but it was during the Umayyad age that all the elements of the legend came together. So the telling of how the northern Arabs were descended from Ishmael, son of Abraham. Hagar herself came from the village in Sinai called al-Arab, the mother of all Arabs. So kind of drawing a correlation between Scripture, where, Hagar, the mother of all slaves, and Sarah, the mother of all free. So they basically solidified this their lineage and put it into texts. And part of that, again, Muawiyah was influenced by the Byzantine Empire, and the Romans had they had a source, they had a father, they had a founding father, which was Aeneas. He was the hero of Troy. So Muawiyah wanted to draw lineage back to their father, their founding father, who was Ishmael. So they begin spreading the legend that they were all from their father Ishmael and the mother of Arabs, Hagar. Prior to this, Muawiyah, sorry.
I get it.
There was not really a desire to or focus to, draw lineages. I mean, yeah, it was important what tribe or clan you came from, but, in terms of drawing to, like Abraham, your father, or, a central father who, was of importance, there was no focus on that. So Caliph Umar II even went as far as establishing full pedigrees by attempting to draw lineage back to Ishmael. So in an attempt to show who was the true Arab, the Al-Arab, there was a attempt to put a pedigree on people. So then, the same guy that built the Dome of the Rock, Caliph Abd al-Malik, and if I had to spend the day speaking Arabic, my tongue would be done. Decreed that all Muslim-controlled territory must learn to read, write, and speak Arabic. For this, remember, there's the Low and High Arabic language and writing. The High Arabic was modified so that it could be easily understood and easily written. So many historians believe that this saved the Quran, because if you think about Latin, which was another language that was somewhat complex, it died out. So they believe this move to make Arabic more accessible to other nations assisted in the spread of the Quran. I think that's all I had for today. Yeah. Any comments or questions? All right. Yeah. I've been trying to look and see if there's any other nation in history that has conquered that much territory in that short amount of time. Yeah.
That is a very good graphical representation of the reality of how spread out it
Yeah.
really is. Because you look at most maps and you think
It looks small.
Sicily's right across the way
Yeah.
from the Mediterranean coast there, the eastern Mediterranean coast. It's not.
Yep.
It's a long sail from Spain to Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's nothing to pop over to wherever that country is below it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just, or the boat, I mean.
But they didn't control that area until later in his office. So, initially, if you go back to this map, he was leading this charge out of this region here.
Yeah, but those are major, major ports. You control the ports, you control everything
Yeah.
else. And so you don't have to go land and conquer places. You just got to get people on the boats. They don't even have to be fighting. You just got to get people employed or setting up a shop. And people will come to you in terms of spreading and converting people.
Yeah, I'm just talking about his military front. It looks like a small distance, but in that technology.
But the guys before him were so like, we don't even want to attempt that. We want to keep it
Right.
centralized in this place that we know well and we can control. We know the land, we know the people.
Because they were Bedouin nomads and the Syrians were sailors.
Yeah.
Totally different
Yep.
way of looking at life.
Yeah, and then to it kind of shows you the warrior spirit of the Arabs. They were going into the heart of the Byzantine Empire. I mean, they controlled this territory, so they skipped that area and tried to take it to the right at the heart of the Byzantine Empire. Which was actually pretty smart. Instead of doing a long drawn-out war over land to get to their central location.
Good question. Has Lydia already have been dissolved already, or has that city, or at that time has that city been there?
Which city?
Lydia.
Lydia.
What a false missionary
I don't know.
cities.
A lot of cities just get renamed.
500 years later.
I don't know.
Where is it in modern day?
Thyatira? Is that what you're talking about?
Right next to it.
Yeah.
My vision's
No, I'm thinking more of like Samaria.
well, that's completely different.
I thought Lydia was a city.
Cyprus.
It's a large territory is what I thought.
Yeah, it's more of a large territory technically.
Yeah, Sardis right there. My Sardis.
Yeah, but that kingdom of Lydia is from 1200 to 546 BC, well before what we're talking about now.
Yeah, that's right there. Yep.
What was it before it was that? It was, the Ottomans changed the name. They made it their capital. Thank you.
Constantinople was
Thank you.
renamed
Istanbul.
Istanbul.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
That'll get stuck in my history.
Thank thank you. There's a piece missing. I'm like, ah. Just say it. Just contribute.
Okay.
I can't think of electric swing right now.
Break.